Hello, and welcome to Rooms with Ronald. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington, and you know what we're talking about today? All things leasing and marketing. I am so thankful to be a part of the Multifamily Media Network. But today is a very special episode, guys. Not only are you getting Rooms with Ronald, you're getting Rooms with Ronald and guests. I am joined by Faith Barker, who is the marketing manager for Trilogy Real Estate Group. Faith, welcome to Rooms with Ronald.
Thank you so much. I feel honored to be on here.
When I was putting this together and I was thinking who is going to be my very first guest, I obviously I'm well known in the industry, so I had a long list, but I said it has to be Faith because Faith, if you don't know this, is the number one Rooms with Ronald fan. She is our biggest fan.
Absolutely. I could not be a bigger fan. I think there's so much value in Rooms with Ronald and the insights you've given, and I'm happy to chat about it with you a little today.
Thank you so much. So let's just start. So, what initially drew you to the original LinkedIn series where I would just post a video online for that was like 10 minutes? What drew you into that?
I really enjoy and feel that there's so much insight we can get from apartment shopping. It's something that I always ask my teams to do when I'm, working with someone new or when something new is coming to the area, just to see what the experience is like and what we can gain, whether it be good or bad. And so you kind of doing that on your own and sharing it on LinkedIn was really exciting to me. And I wanted to kind of get the tea. It felt like we were having a little gossip time and I could kind of get the insights on what other properties are doing, which was fun for me.
I love some tea. But that was never like the thing. I just thought I was going to put up this video and no one was going to watch it. And then I put up the first one, and then you like messaged me on LinkedIn and you're like, when's the second one coming out? I have to know. So, what were some takeaways that you took away from my shops?
I think something that we can all gain is that we can always be better. We can celebrate our wins and when things go good, but there's always things that we can improve upon and do better. And I really appreciated sometimes even when I felt like where I work or where I was working at the time could have been better. It was exciting to see that, or not exciting, but maybe fun or approachable to see that everybody has mistakes, and that there's always things we can learn from. And maybe there's somebody doing it worse than we are, which can sometimes feel good too, a little confidence boost.
That was the tea part, right? So, as you
Yeah.
know, like I had never said what communities I shopped in Rooms with Ronald, like all of that part was confidential. So, you're right. Like to me, I took it as my team. When I went back to my team, I'm like, are we the best that we could be? Absolutely not. Because to me, I think leasing, you're never going to be the best. I always think like you're going to be thrown something that you may never have dealt with before. But I think what you can be is confident. And so, like, that's when I went back to team. I was like, guys, I shopped XY property like around this area. And let me tell you what they're doing because it was not good. But then I would say, but on the flip side, your competitor was doing this and this was good. So it kind of allowed them to play with that. And I know like I talked a lot about the marketing collateral and like some of the tech challenges on websites, um, which you are in the process of kind
Yeah.
of revamping Trilogy's website. So what inspired that? And B, like, what are you looking for as you revamp?
So inspired is because I'm a little bit new to the company. I started in October, and we're just taking a better look at all of our websites, kind of as we're approaching high leasing season once again. It's going to be here before we know it. But what are some things that we could expand upon and do better? And where are things that are working right now? Where are people going the most? Do these pages look the best? Are there things we could add to make them more valuable? And then where are there areas that we don't have already on the site that we can, make better and even add in the first place? So that's really kind of where I started and why I'm looking at all of our sites to make some updates. And what was the second part of that question? I'm so sorry.
And like, what are you looking for as you're doing these updates? Like, what is
Sure. Things that I'm looking for. Yeah. So I'm looking at our keyword usage and if those keywords make sense. I'm looking at the actual user experience. And when you get on the website, something that we're all guilty of doing, I feel like, especially us who kind of have a desk job often, is I'm looking at something on my laptop and I'm not checking it on my phone. So does the experience look good on mobile? Does it look good on desktop? Are we showing our best pictures front and center? I'm even looking at, the menus on sites and different sites, and what are they calling things? What looks best? What makes the most sense? Just kind of really taking a full comprehensive look at all of it.
I think it's so funny because I look at everything on my phone. So like for me, when you said like you look at everything on your laptop, like I probably only use my laptop for work and
Yeah.
work only. And most of the time, like I'm responding to emails from phone. So to me, it is so important to kind of look at that mobile friendly. And I felt like that's just something that's kind of happened over the last 2 or 3 years, right? When we kind of like took off because it used to be everyone went to their laptop and they looked at sites. So how are you ensuring that, you have an optimized website both for a laptop or a PC and the phone?
So I think a really easy way of doing, actually, there's a couple. I'll give you some good tips here. The first is that you can check how a website looks in mobile from your laptop. So if you don't feel like pulling it up on your phone as you're checking things, it's in, or I use Google Chrome, so it's in the developer tab, and you can check what it looks like on different websites, or not on different websites, on different mobile devices too. So versus Android versus Apple.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a quick, easy try for that. But there's another program I used called Microsoft Clarity, and you load it into the back end of your website, and it allows you to look at how people are using your site. I find that really helpful too. So it'll give you like a weekly report email as well that says, here's the pages that were visited the most. Here's how far down on your web page they're scrolling. And then, as you get lower, 60% of people got here, 20% of people got here. So you can kind of see where the most important information needs to go. But it can also tell you something called rage clicks, which is when you're clicking on a website and something's not working right. So if people are going through your carousel, for example, and they keep clicking at the end, it's going to take note of that and say, hey, you keep getting a bunch of rage clicks on this website. So then from there, I can look and I can see, oh, should I have the carousel go back to the beginning after the pictures are done? Or maybe this also means I don't have enough pictures and we should try to get some more. All some really good insights that you can get from there, aside from just, what it looks like on mobile versus desktop.
Well, I'm glad to know I'm probably one of those rage clickers because I have no patience. I'm like, can you just load, please, already? What? So you use Microsoft Clarity. What has been some things that has really opened your eyes from looking at that data that you're like, oh, we have to like make this change immediately to effectively, run our business and get people in the door?
I think it kind of will depend a little bit on what site you're looking at and the different areas. I think that's something I found really valuable is in different markets, different things seem to matter. Um, but I think for me, it's been, kind of how people use like a map page. So I was working before with, it was one website that encompassed 25 buildings that were all like within a half mile of each other. So they just had a centralized leasing model there. And seeing how people use the map to look at that is so different than looking at if you have one property being advertised on your one website, how are people searching the map for that? Looking at, kind of what filters, I think those were a lot of key takeaways I took, off the bat from there, as
Yeah.
well as to like that scroll depth, being able to understand, okay, you could use it to your advantage too if you're a marketer. But sometimes you've got, someone who's in a decision-making spot that says, we need to have this on the site. Well, you kind of can figure out where might be a good place to put it based on scroll depth, if it's something that kind of really doesn't matter, or if it's something that really does.
Well, and that's so funny because what matters to me may not matter to the next person. So what about those pesky plugins, so like the AI bots and things like that, I had a lot of trouble
Mm.
across the country with the AI tools not either booking my appointment or not getting loaded into the PMS software. And even that one where it sent me to a property in Charleston and I was trying to shop in Texas. So, like, what should we be doing to ensure that those plugins are actually working?
I think first and foremost, we need to really audit the platforms before we bring it on. Something that I notice kind of across the board in our industry is that people want to get what everybody else is having without really putting as much thought into it, right? I think we can see this even with new social media platforms that are coming about. You know, TikTok is now really big. People are just making TikToks and just like throwing things out there without
You have
any kind of
people like me
strategy.
that are just doing podcasts because it sounds like a great idea.
People love the podcast, okay? Um, but kind of back to this, I think we're just like, oh, my competitor has this chat bot, so I'm gonna get this chat bot. Flush it out, like try it out on other sites, exactly like what you're doing, and see if it works for you, if it's successful. Does it make sense? Um, Sometimes I even ask like my husband to check stuff because I'm in the industry, I'm in marketing. I'm not really the best person always to audit this stuff because my brain is where in the multifamily world. Get somebody who doesn't do this for a living, someone who's totally outside. Does it make sense for them? I think that's something really valuable too, because ultimately, 9 out of 10 prospects, probably more, are not in our industry. So if it doesn't make sense to them, if it's not intuitive to them, that's really what's going to matter.
Right. I tend to find that when I'm on a chatbot on a website, and because I am in the industry and, I'm not, your multifamily marketing gal like you are, but, I know a little bit about marketing every now and then. And I can't tell you how many times I'll be on the chatbot and I'll ask it a question and it will give me the information. But then I'll go to the website, like on like that FAQ page on their website, and the information doesn't match. It's
Yeah.
like, it's those little things that I think we forget. And as much as I hate to, overload the sites, I mean, I think that the sites are the people that should start the auditing process because they're going to know it more than, the corporate people. So, do you have something in place that's working really well for you right now of this auditing process as you're going through? Are you working with the site teams? Because sometimes, there's that disconnect between marketing and the site teams.
Yeah. So I have meetings every other week with my teams to talk about how things are going for marketing. And part of that is like, how is our, chatbot doing? How is this AI we're trying out working? I think something really important if you are going to bring this on, that is that we should have a plan in place for when things go wrong. I think so many of us think and hear, AI is going to take over our jobs and everything like that. But AI needs to learn. And if you're not going to invest in its continued learning like you would for a leasing agent or someone who's answering the phone for you, it's not going to work as you want it to. Um, we've done the same thing. You fill out the form that the chatbot people give you and you send it off. But as things get updated, you need to be making sure that you're keeping that chat bot informed too of what's your new special. Is the old special expired or are we adding something new on? Are we making an amendment to how we're going to handle pets? All of these things need to keep kept updated and that should be part of your policy. And if that's not, then that's when you're going to really start to see a lot of those issues.
100%. And just like even because we use so many different platforms, right? You use the ILSs, you use Google, you use it, that information all needs to be cohesive. But when we talk about bringing on new technology, what I find really interesting is that you have these owners or these investors who kind of want that shiny new toy.
Mhm.
And so they just go buy it, right? They're like, my sites are going to use it, but then they don't teach the site team or get the site teams buy-in when they're rolling it out. Have you experienced that?
Yes. Yes, I have.
And how did you like overcome that and things like that?
I think I have always come with like a solutions oriented approach to things. So when I hear, okay, we're going to be launching XYZ software, I'm immediately like, okay, what does this mean? Asking all the questions. And then from there, being like, okay, how does this make sense for team? You know, how I look at marketing is that I'm the voice of the company. So whether that be external and making sure that prospects know that we exist, or that's internal with like our team and having them understand like what it is that we're bringing on and why it matters. I think this is an opportunity that you can merge departments together, like training and marketing. Okay, we're going to roll out this new software. Like, let's have a collective conversation on what this does so that we can make sure we're informing the teams properly, informing residents, prospects properly, but then that we, training has everything they need to in order to make sure that everyone's informed and educated on whatever solution you're bringing in.
I totally agree because I feel like sometimes in our training worlds, people forget that we're not the subject matter expert, and like they're like, just go roll this out. And I'm like, I don't even know the software myself. So like 5 minutes before a training call, I'm in the background like scrambling to learn the software,
Mhm.
which I see it from both sides, right? Like as a training person, do I necessarily need to be the subject matter expert? Probably not, because I will be able to explain it
Yep.
from their perspective. Whereas if you have the subject matter expert, you tend to forget terminology. Like you're just like, yep, you're going to do this, this, and this. And like, because you've done it so long. So I think that's a nice gap. And I think it's the same thing in leasing training too. We forget to pull in our marketing counterparts when we're doing leasing training out here in the world. We're just like, this is great,
Yeah.
but we also need that marketing hand to kind of like help us, right? Like to
Yeah.
understand what's going on.
I
Because
think so for sure.
go ahead, tell me what you think.
No, you.
No, because here's what happens. Like, whose fault is it? I always play this game, right? You always have someone in the corporate office who says, um, "We need more leads." That
Mm.
old saying, like, "We need more leads. If we can just get 100 more leads, we're going to get 100 more applications." And then, like, the sites are like, we're inundating." And then that same person who says we need more leads says, "Well, it's training's fault because training isn't out there showing them how to close the deal." So, how do you see in your ideal world, you're running a property management company, how would you bleed those two together?
Okay. I think they go hand in hand already, right? I mean, I think both training and marketing are people that need to take the information from the experts and kind of bring that down to a more approachable level. Um, Before I worked in multifamily, I worked in business to business technology. And we would have customers calling in and be like, hey, Stan came to the property today and helped us out and explained the whole issue, but it was all in like technology terms, and I have no clue what it actually meant. And so you'd have to kind of be like, okay, well, what he really did was XYZ. And that's kind of what I feel like we do. Marketing, I'm here taking all of this information about the property and like watering that down to what is palatable for a prospect. And conversely, training's doing the same thing, making it more approachable for, you know, a new employee or, a current employee learning new things. What are the things that we really need to know? Um, but as far as like, the cycle of things, I think when you get into something like that, from a marketing perspective, I want to look at what leads we currently have coming in and if they're qualified. Because a million leads doesn't matter. A million leads means you need more leasing agents. And that's a whole different cycle we're going to get into. Looking at
That's
who we
like
have right
that's like
now.
the opposite of what we're like the industry is
Yeah.
going. Like we're not adding more leasing agents with like centralization things like that. We're actually like kind of shrinking the pot a little bit.
Yeah. Because you've got more people. You've got, the person to unit ratio is going to shift. Um, Looking at like the lead sources and holding them accountable, making sure that what we have out there is accurate, making sure the leads we come in are actually qualified and meet what we're needing. But then I think there's also onus on the leasing team too, right? Like they have to be Is the team holding up their end of the bargain too? Are they walking through the property and making sure that the apartments they're showing are ready? Or are they reporting back when they see things on a tour that shouldn't be how they are? And even just self-education too. I think we all have to advocate for ourselves to get better. And something that I really love about LinkedIn, specifically, is there's so many thought leaders that are just sharing really great information for free. I think the tools are out there for us, and we just need to take advantage of those too.
You kind of like talked about, like looking at qualified leads. Are you guys testing out, like, I've seen some sites on like their pop-ups on their chatbot, like the questions of like, here's our cheapest apartment, which I hate the word cheapest, but for this purpose, here's our
Yeah.
cheapest apartment. To make the income qualifications, you need to make X amount of dollars. And then you like click yes or no. Like, are you testing anything out like that to kind of help with that qualified leads?
I've done more straightforward, as in like, we're looking for, 3 times the rent amount, like putting that kind of information front and center. But I think it also helps to kind of look at where your pricing is as well, like in comparison to the market, and just making sure that that's kind of in check. I've seen, even when you're in the situation of we need more leads, and it's like, okay, are we what does the market look like? If you're priced way above everybody else, you're not going to get the same leads that the complex down the street's getting. So if you want that number, you maybe need to consider dropping the price or something so that it can be more attainable, or maybe fall within the parameters of what's being searched for your local area on the ILSs.
And I think a lot of times too, like we become so focused on the base rent price where
Mhm.
we're the cheapest in the market, or we're not the most expensive, wherever you
Yeah.
fall in the market. But what we tend to forget about are those additional monthly fees, which for some people can make or break where they're gonna live.
Yeah.
So you might be the cheapest in the market
Mhm.
in that market, but do your additional monthly fees all of a sudden put you at the top of the market? And I think we became so obsessed with that ancillary income there for a while that
Yes.
we didn't think about it like from that. And I mean, I'm great at selling fees, but sometimes when I'm the highest in the market, it's hard to create that value
Mhm.
for prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I did at one of my former properties is our ownership liked to have everything really itemized like that. So here's what your rent is. Here's what your renter's insurance is going to cost. Here's what this and this. They liked being able to provide that transparency. But on the converse side, we then end up in this like, people feel like they're getting nickel and dimed. The rent price that's showing up on the ILS is not always what you kind of end up paying. And so how we combated that was making a paper that I would have Leasing send out with every tour. Here's the apartments that we saw today. And I would leave a little section for notes. So you could say, like, you really like the kitchen in this one, or, this one had the bigger balcony, whatever that is. But also itemize out everything that you're going to pay. And then be like, here's what you're going to pay if you live here. Here's your all in number. Of course, I understand you're looking at other options, but these are some good questions too that you should ask when you go on those tours. Because something that I wish, and this is my, property management utopia, is that we would all have this nice itemized, here's what you're actually going to pay, all in, here's what you can expect. Because I think we're selling ourselves short and doing a disservice to renters when we just put the lowest number and then add all these things on later. Um, I don't know how you feel about that.
Like I totally agree with that. And I
Yeah.
hate when a leasing agent sits down and the first thing that they do is go over all the monthly fees, or it's the last thing that they do, because I'm like, they're either going to be so focused on the monthly fees that they're not going to remember the tour,
Mhm.
or if it's the last thing that you do, you now became the property that like nickel and dime them. And
Yeah.
I'm going to make a prediction right here with you today that I think we're going to see that all number probably in the next 3 to 4 years. And here's why I say that. Everyone knows multifamily is behind hospitality by like five to
Yeah.
10 years, right? And so um, I am a true Hilton loyalist, but my boss does like Marriott. So sometimes I do have to stay at the Marriott. But if you go onto the Marriott app, it's the all-inclusive price of all the
Mhm.
taxes, all the fees. It's not just, what the nightly rate is. So you know what you're getting out. Like, okay, so I know it says $363. That includes all those taxes and service charges, anything like that. So I think that's coming. And we're seeing a lot more systems out there that are kind of like when you're applying, clicking, you'll see the base rent, but when you start the application process, you do see that all-in number. So I
Mhm.
think like we're probably going to see that just become the norm in the next 3 to 4 years. What do you think? Do you think my prediction's wrong?
I think you're onto something. And when you're mentioning this, I'm even thinking about like Airbnb, how right now they've got, it'll show you like, okay, it's $63 a night, but then it shows you, it's going to be $400 total because once you add in all of those fees. I think that's the level of transportation transparency that people are looking for now. It's not that kind of budgeted line item like I think older generations preferred. I think they want to see make it cut and dry, make it as easy as possible for me to understand apples to apples.
And we have a lot of first time renters who don't even have to think about that, right? They're like, it's kind of like a mortgage. Like when you get your mortgage, obviously your utilities are separate, but your insurance is usually factored into your monthly mortgage payment.
Yeah.
Have the PMI, all of those like taxes and fees are included in there. And I see the shift also happening in the airline industry.
Mhm.
When I go to Southwest to buy my ticket to fly wherever I'm going, I see the price and I know that $202 for that one way, that's the price. There's going to be no more fees.
Yeah.
So I think like we kind of are seeing that shift already happening in other industries. It
Mhm.
just takes people like you to have the seat at the table to voice those opinions that like, hey, here is what we are missing and here's what other people are doing to make that better.
Absolutely.
I have lots of predictions we could sit and make all day, like because I look at all these other industries because that's what people are expecting.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a lot of people haven't rented an apartment in a while, and we're seeing a shift in like you're probably seeing this on the marketing side from it of who we are getting into. You know what I mean? Like, so we no longer are renting to people who are renters by like circumstance. Like people are choosing to rent and they
Mhm.
want that transparency in what it means for that family.
Yeah. And one of my favorite pieces of data is that something like 67% of Gen Z anticipates that they will never own a home. They will just rent for their whole lives. So when you kind of put that into perspective, we have the opportunity in this industry to really get people and hold on to them for long term. So, I think that's going to shift a lot of things, even down to service. I think service has changed a lot. And certainly that's something you've talked about on Rooms with Ronald. But, that we have the option of we used to see somebody renew 2 or 3 times, and we have the potential to see them renew 5, 7 more times. And that's gonna, come down to how we serve and how we take care of our residents.
When I first started in this industry in 2014 in Sacramento, California,
Mhm.
we had the apartment I was working at was built in the late 70s and they had an original resident there.
Yeah.
And she is still there to this day. And only how I
Mhm.
know that is because I still follow them on social media. And
Yeah.
every year at renewal time, they take the annual photo with her.
That's really cute.
And I'm just like, she's
Yeah.
like not lived anywhere else. So I think that's really a great way to get people involved. But, we're almost out of time. So I just want to ask you, what can someone who is a leasing agent or someone on site
Mhm.
do to help the marketing team? Like, how can they help you market their communities better? What should they be looking for?
I think everyone should know that marketing and leasing is a two-way street. So, marketing might be asking you for questions or asking you for things, but there's no problem in coming back and asking like what makes sense or asking questions, bringing insights that you see. They're so valuable. Or even, communicating if you're having an issue getting a certain floor plan or a certain, building. If you are centralized leasing, I can't get this building to go. Usually your marketing people have all the data. So if, you know, for example, one time I had to hop in and help at a tour one time, and I kept leasing this building out because I had data from a resident survey that everybody really loved the maintenance guy. So as I was, showing this apartment, I was saying this maintenance guy has like a 97% satisfaction rate. And, took a survey kind of within the last month. Everyone's been raving about how much they really love this guy and he's so great. And everybody wanted to move in there then because they're like, I feel like if I'm going to be in a pickle, I know we've got this great guy who works here. And that's just insight that the team doesn't have. So I think making sure that that kind of two-way street is always open, and making sure that you're communicating with them regularly. Um, and also just like take all the pictures you can on site. Marketing, oftentimes is someone who's maybe out of corporate or they're out of, a different office. So if you're walking into the office one day and the sky looks really pretty, take a picture. If there's a resident who has a really cute dog, ask if you could take a picture and send all these things in, so that your marketing team can continue to show the lifestyle of if a resident was to choose your property. Those are such important things now that renters want to see. If they're going to your socials, if they're going to see what you like, they want to know what it's going to be like to be a resident there, not only what the amenities are going to be or what the apartment's going to look like.
I totally agree. I always tell people like people want the lifestyle. They want to know what it's like. They don't want to be sold to. They want to know like what's gonna like to be a real resident at your community. They
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having this conversation. If people want to continue the conversation with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. So I am on LinkedIn. Faith Barker is my name. And then I also have an Instagram where I'm starting to add some more content around apartment marketing. And my handle is at your multifamily marketer.
I love that. Well, guys, we have came to the end of the episode. Faith, thank you so much for being here. I learned a lot in just that quick 30 minutes about marketing, how I need to start using the data that I got. Um, this has been Rooms with Ronald and Guest. I am your host, Ronald Harrington. Here at Rooms with Ronald, we talk all things leasing and marketing. I hope you learned one little piece of information today. You go out, you take it, and you get that lease. I want to thank the Multifamily Media Network for producing this podcast. Until next time, guys, happy leasing.